Let's start now with our new lesson in lesson 6, which is talking about inverse variation. In this lesson, we are going to learn how to write and graph equations for the inverse variation and how to compare between the direct and the inverse variations. Now, before talking about the inverse, what is the opposite of inverse variation? This is the meaning of inverse. Inverse is like
Inverse means like the opposite.
that means while you increase x, y is decreasing. So it's like this. This is the meaning of the inverse. Y x increase, so y will be decreased. This is the linear inverse variation. And what is the opposite of it? It is the direct variation. Direct variation, that's mean if s is increasing, y is increasing also. X increased and y increased. The first one, we called it direct, and the second one, we called it inverse. This is the inverse and the direct variation. Now, let's start now with it. This is just a remainder here. Now, how can we compare or how can we classify between the direct and the inverse? In the inverse, if the product of two variables is non-zero constant, if you multiply the variable x and y and you get a constant k, so you write it as y equal k over x. So these two variables, y and x, make an inverse variation. So if the product of the two variables in the inverse are making a constant k, like x times y equals k, so both of x and y are the variables in the inverse variation. So you ask me, teacher, what about the direct? The direct, that's if you divide x over y, y over x. You divide them and have a constant k, then y will be the constant times x. If you divide the two variables in the variation and you get a constant k, this will be direct. If you multiply the two variables in the variation and you get a constant k, this will be inverse. So divide the variable, you get a direct, multiply them, you get an inverse. So what's the equation of the inverse variation? The equation of the inverse variation, that's y is equal to k over x. Y is k over x. This is the inverse variation equation. Y, k over x. Let's learn here, see here, how we will write the equation of the inverse. Suppose y varies inversely. Now look at this word here. Y varies inversely with x. So from this word here, inversely, that means I'm talking here about inverse variation. Because they told me that they are inversely. So this is inverse variation. Then, so from the words, let's analyze now the word problem here. Suppose y varies inversely with x. So this is an inverse variation. It's an inverse. So y will be k over, k times x. Y will be k times x. It's x times y equals k. So, sorry, x times y equals k. So y will be k over x. This is for the inverse. Y is k over x. Now, this is the equation of the inverse variation. They told me then y is 8 and x is 3. I need now to write the equation. I will substitute here. I say that y is k over x. Y is 8, k is unknown, and x is 3. So it is y is 8 equals k over 3. Now, to write any equation, what did we say? We write y, the equation for anything is y equals something times x. Any equation, it's need y and x. So from here, the equation, it must be y equal k over x. This is for the inverse. So to write that, what do I need to find? I need to find a k. How I will find k? By using this one here. That k is 8 times 3, which is 24. So from this one here, you find that k is 24. So what's the equation will be? Y equals 24 over x. This is the equation of the inverse variation. Is it clear?
Not, teacher, not that much. How did you find k?
Let's repeat
By
it.
cross
Yes,
product?
let's repeat it now. Yes, by cross product. What is the equation? I will repeat. Suppose y varies inversely with x. So I'm talking about inverse variation. The equation for the inverse variation, y equals k over x. So to write it, you need k. To write the inverse variation, what did you need to find? You need to find k. If you find k, you can tell me that y is equal a number over x. This is the equation of the inverse. How did I find k? To find k, I have to use the data that's given. Y is 8 and x is 3. If I have y and x, they told me that if you multiply x and y, you get a constant k. So y is k over x. Y is 8. K is unknown. And x is 3. Now, how did you find k now?
Cross product, property.
Yes, let's make a cross product. So k times 1 is k equals 8 times 3, which is 24. You multiply 8 times 3, you get a k. So after you find k, let's come back now to our equation here. So y will be 24 over x. This will be now the equation of the inverse variation. Is it clear?
Yes, Miss.
Yes, teacher.
Yes, miss.
Now, suppose y varies inversely with x. So I'm talking about inverse variation. From this word, that's mean inverse variation. To write the equation of the inverse variation, we said that the equation was y equals k over x. So to write it, I need to find k. Now, to find k, we said before here that k is x over y, is the x times y, or y is k over x. So to find it here, you can use two ways. The one they are the same. The first one, you can say that x times y is equal k, or you can say y is k over x. One or any of them, will give you the same answer. In the previous question, I solved you like using this one. Let's find them if you multiply x and y, and if you solve it by the second way here. To find k, you can multiply x times y, whereas y is 9 and x is 6. So 6 times 9, which is 54. So k is 54. So to find k, you have to multiply x times y. Or you can say that y, which is 9, equals k over 6. By cross product, you will find that this k is 54. So you can use any of them. You can say that since it is inverse, so the product of two variables will be constant. So x times y will equal k. Then you find k as 54. Then you come back to write the equation. Equation says y equal k over x. Y is 54 over x.
And teacher, I will not write what y and x is in the
No.
final equation.
No, yeah, because the equation, anytime, if you see any equation in our real life, we know that the equation is y x plus 1 or y like x squared minus 1 over x, or y is 3x minus 1 over 5x minus 9 as an example. So in each equation that we talked before, you have y on the left and x on the right. In the inverse variation, you have the same. You have y on the left and x on the right. So since it is an equation, we must have x and y in the equation. To write the equation, you need to find k. How do you find k? Since it is inverse, you have to multiply x and y. If you multiply them, you get k.
Okay, Miss.
Is it clear?
Yes.
Yes, teacher.
Let's have now another. Now, suppose y varies inversely with x. Write an equation for the inverse variation. Here now in number 9. So I'm talking about inversely variation. So to write it or to write the equation, y is k over x for each one. Y is k over x. Y is k over x. Then here, to write the equation, as I told you, what did I need? I need only k. If you find k, you can write the equation. So to write the equation, you need to find k. How will we find k here? As I told you, since it is inverse, so inverse, that means the product of x and y is k. The product, so I need to find k. And the product of x and y is k. So if x is 3 and y is 6, so k will be 18. Because since it is inverse, so the product of the two variables x and y will be k. So k is 18. So to write the equation, I have to come back here and I say y is k, but instead of k, you have to write 18 over x. By this way now, you wrote the inverse variation equation. Is it clear now?
Yes, Miss.
Now
Yes,
come back
teacher.
to the number 10. In number 10 here, we say that the equation is k over x. So to write the equation, you have to say y is k over x. So to write it, what did you need? You need to find k. How did you find k? By multiply x times y. So 1 times -2. If you multiply them, you get -2. So k is -2. So to write the equation, what did you need? You need to replace k with -2. So the equation will be y equal -2 over x. Is it clear?
Yes, Miss.
Now I need you now to solve number 11. And
Teacher,
send me
I
the
sent.
answer on chat. Yeah, send me the answer on chat. I want the final equation.
Okay, teacher.
Teacher number 11.
Yes, number 11.
Teacher, I send you the answer.
Thank you, Farah. Jana, please write the equation, not only k. So here you need to write the equation, you need to find k. To find k, we say that the product of x and y is k. So 7 times 8, which is 56. Thank you, Basmala. So k now is 56. So to write the equation, we have to say k is 56 over x. This will be now the equation for the inverse variation. Is it clear?
Yes,
Yes,
teacher.
miss.
Let's now start now here. So I told you that the objective from this lesson, how to write and how to graph the inverse variation. We learned how to write. Now let's see how to graph the inverse variation. Several graphs for the inverse variation xy equal k are shown at the right. So to write or to draw the inverse variation, supposed to be like this. This is the graphs like this. So suppose this will be now, this is the inverse variation, where is y equals k over x. Or as you remember before, do you remember when we talk about 1 over x? So here it is k times 1 over x. So the graph here depends on the value of k. What did I mean? If k is greater than 0, so the graph lies in the first and the third quadrant. Let's remember now here. This is the first quadrant, or we name it with the quadrant 1. This is a quadrant 2. This is a quadrant 3. And this is quadrant 4. We know it before. Quadrant 1, 2, 3, and 4. Now, when k, so I told you now, the inverse variation, it is y equals k times 1 over x, or k over x. So to graph the inverse, the graph depends on the value of k. What did I mean? If k is greater than 0, so the graph will be in quadrant 1 and quadrant 3. So if k is greater than 0, it will be here and here in 1 and 3. And if k is less than 0, so the graph will be in quadrant 2 and in quadrant 4. What did I mean? I mean like if you graph like x over y, x is 2 over x, y is 2 over x, as an example. You graph it in the yellow curve. It's not only in this curve. I told you if k is greater than x, it must be in the first and third quadrant. So you must write its mirror in 3. If you draw it in 1, you must write its mirror in quadrant 3. Or if you draw it in quadrant 2, you must write, or we must graph its mirror in quadrant 4. Because it must be on both, or in 2 quarters, 1 and 3, if k is greater than 0, and 2 and 4, if k is less than 0. Now, look at here. Here we have the yellow the blue, sorry, curve. This is if k is 6. So if k is 6 and 6 is a positive value, so it will be in the first quadrant, here and here. But when k is 2, so the curve will be stretched down. So it is 2. It is here. It will be stretched under the curve of k equals 6. And since k is positive, so it will be on the first and on the third quadrant. So let's now graph it here. This will be more clearly for you. Now, the first case when k is 6. When k is 6, so it will be stretched, or it will be, I'm sorry, if k is 6, so k is positive. Since k is positive and it's greater than 0, so it must be drawn in quadrant 1 and in quadrant 3. K is positive, so it is in quadrant 1 and quadrant 3. So it has to be here. I'm sorry. So y is 6 over x. And I told you it must be graphed in quadrant 1 and quadrant 3. So I must draw it here as y equal 6 over x. So if it is inverse, if it is k is greater than 0, so it's the quadrant 1 and the quadrant 3. Now, if you have now k is 2, so it's supposed to be here. This is for y equal 2 over x. Two is positive, so it's supposed to be in the quadrant 1 and the quadrant 3. So if y is 2 over x, so it is in the quadrant 1, and you need to draw its mirror in the quadrant 3. So here y is 2 over x. Is it clear now?
Yes,
Yeah, and teacher, whether k is greater than 0, it will be in the quadratic 1 and 3.
Yes.
And the opposite, yes.
Yes, this is for the positive,
Me?
yes. Yes.
I didn't understand it very well.
Here, I didn't graph. I didn't tell you how to draw. Just you have to need to know that if k is positive, look at number 6 here. Is 6 positive or negative?
Positive.
Positive. So it's supposed to be in a quadrant 1. This is the quadrant 1. And in a quadrant 3. That's what I needed from you only. This is by
Okay.
tomorrow I will tell you how to graph. But from just today, I want you to know that if it is positive, it's only quadrant 1 and the quadrant 3. And let's see now if k is negative. Like k is negative 6. Since it's negative, so it's supposed to be in the quadrant 2 and the quadrant 3.
It's quadratic 4, you mean?
Eh?
Teacher, quadratic 2 and
4.
3?
So, 2 and 4. I'm sorry. So, what you have to do here, I told you it's negative 6. So just flip this 6 here and flip it. I don't know if I can. Oh. cannot flip it. I mean, like it's like this. So if k is -6, so it will be a quadrant 2 and a quadrant 4. So here k is -6 over x. And after you do it here, it must be also in a quadrant 4. So k here is -6 over x. And if you have k is -2, -2 is less than 0. So it has to be in a quadrant 2 and a quadrant 4. So this is now k is -2 over x. And here it is k is -2 over x. Now look at them. The inverse variation must not cut or intersect with the x or y axis. You shouldn't intersect it with the x or y axis. As you see here, in any point here, it didn't intersect. Or here, or here, or here. It didn't intersect the x or y axis. Is it clear now?
Yes, miss.
Yes, teacher, it's clear.
So from the value of k, I can guess where the variation or where the graph will be. If k is positive, so it will be in a quadrant 1 and 3. And if k is negative, it has to be in a quadrant 2 and 4. Do you have any question?
Teacher, for the intersection, you mean يعني it doesn't intersect يعني the
Yes. يعني I mean it's
y
like this.
axis?
Yeah, it's like this. And this is the supposed to be like this now. And it doesn't like this as an example. This is the meaning of intersection. Or it's like this. This is false. This is mean that intersect. I told you it's not, it must not intersect. So it's supposed to be like this. This is for y, for the inverse variation.
Okay, teacher.
Okay. Do you have any other question?
No, miss.
No, teacher, thank you.
You're welcome.
No, thank you
The
so
time,
much.
the time is
Thank you, teacher.
the time is finished. The period is finished. Thank you so much.
Okay. Have a nice day.
Have a nice
Thank
day.
you so
Bye
much.
bye.
Have a nice day. Bye. Nice day, teacher.
Bye bye.
Thank you, teacher. Goodbye.
Bye bye.